Most of you know I'm a real fan of Thomas Jefferson, so I thought it was appropriate. The Doc Owens Show is moving on up to connectpal.com. All you need to do to follow us to our new address is go to docowenshow.com. That's docowenshow.com. Signing up will take you about 2 to 3 minutes, and you're done. You will receive a daily notice of our new broadcast 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. So go to docowenshow.com and join us today.
We were all Americans before the hyphens came. People cared about who you were and less about your name. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came.
Howdy, folks. You are listening to the Doc Owen Show on Spreaker.com. This is Doc Owen. Happy and prosperous New Year to you. The name of this show is New Year, New Show. We will probably retain that for a little while because we're going to set some new standards and create a new format and lots of exciting stuff going on that I will get into in just a heartbeat. We are all over the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Pinterest, Instagram, yada, yada. You name it, you can find Doc Owen Show, DOCOWENSHOW. Towards the end of last year, we put a lot of focus on, speaking of social media, on Twitter. And we grew our Twitter following up to almost 6,000 folks, and we continue to grow it. We're aiming for that 6,000 mark, and we're about 20 some odd shy. So if you are following us on Twitter, please tell your friends to follow us, and let's help push it across that 6,000. So the first at least 90 days of this year, we're going to put a major focus on Facebook. If you go to Facebook and simply go into the search window, the Facebook search window, look up Doc Owen Show. There is also a Doc Owen page out there because somebody has to own the Doc Owen Show. But where we need you to be is on the Doc Owen Show Facebook. On Facebook, like us out there. Tell your friends to like us. I have a target of 1,000 likes that I'd like to reach at the end of 90 days. One of the things that we're going to be doing with Facebook is posting a question of the show. I use Facebook an awful lot like a blog. An awful lot of the things that you hear about on the show, articles that I use on the show, some I do, some I don't. But I'm really pretty good about getting them out there on Facebook so that you can read them on your own and dive deeper into it than I have an opportunity to do on the air. So it's a valuable tool. I'd like to see you use it, get your friends to use it. It's a place to add comments. And just before we started the show tonight, we put a post out on Facebook, and it requests your comments, and it has to do with tonight's show. So if you're not already following us on Facebook, please take some time either during the show or shortly thereafter to go out and look it up. It's DOCOWENSHOW. So understand we're gonna put some focus on that, and we're gonna try to get a little bit of better use out of that particular social media tool. Before I dive into our standard fare tonight, or as I dive into it, I want to make sure you know that we have a new co-host riding in the sidecar of this cotton-picking rocket that's going to be joining on the air from time to time as she simply sees fit. As some of you know, and not enough of you are members of it, you need to go out to meetup.com and look up Off the Clock with Doc. That is the only place that we change the name or the brand or the handle by which we do all of this. And there's a reason for that. It's because it's off the clock. And everybody's opinions are welcome at a different restaurant, have a couple of adult beverages and some pretty good food. Nothing fancy. Just, all sit around kind of a picnic table and kick around what's going on in the world and what we might do to change it. There are some excellent ideas that come out of those off the clock with Doc meetings. So if you are not familiar with meetup.com, go out there, become a registered user. All it takes is an email address, and then you will get notices of it. Basically, it's a keyword sort of thing. So when you join, it'll ask you for things that you're interested in. You can put in Constitution. You can put in conservative. You can put in red baseball hats. You can put in cats, dogs, emus. I don't know. But, there's bound to be a meetup going on by other people that are interested in the same keywords that you're interested in. And then look up Off the Clock with Doc. Join us, and you'll get notices of where we're going to meet each month. Well, at one of those meetups recently, there was a young lady that kind of held back in the beginning of the meeting and just kind of sat back and watched everything that was going on. And if you know me, I'm not one to much allow that. So, you have to make like directed questions at folks sometime to say, please participate. Well, I did that with this young lady, and it just opened up a floodgate of ideas and a tad bit of attitude. So we're going to introduce her on the show. She's going to be on the show as a regular. She's also helping man the computer system. She's really doing a lot. And I when I finally asked her what her name was, you're not going to believe it, but it's a fact. And I know that there are other people with similar names, but this one just tied together like nobody's business. So give a warm Doc Owen Show welcome to Ms. Ima Surefire. Ima, how are you this evening?
I'm fine. How are you?
Well,
howdy, folks.
It's kind of strange not getting any feedback. You can't hear applause. You can't hear people, laughing or clapping or anything like that. So radio's a little bit strange like that, but you just got to hang in there and know that they're listening to you. Is that okay? Can you live with that?
I think so, and I think if they participate in the Facebook and the Twitter, we'll get a lot of conversation going that way.
That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
And you know something about Facebook? Are you familiar with that?
Why, sure. Who wouldn't be in this day and age?
See what I mean, folks? It's never a simple yes or no. You're not going to be able to elicit that kind of answer. All right, Emma, as we go through the show, you've got a mic right there in front of you. It's turned on. There is no off switch. So when you feel like chiming in or, have something to cover a little more thoroughly than I covered it, you're more than welcome to. Fair enough?
Fair enough. Will do, Doc.
All right, thank you. So here we go, folks. New year, new show. I always start off with at least one leadership quote. And tonight is no exception. We have two of them. The first of which, they both come from Crown Grace International. Some friends of mine, I get a daily email that's a daily leadership tip of the day. And I thoroughly enjoy them. This one does not have an author attributed to it. It's just something that we needed to know. And it says that managers provide answers. Leaders ask questions. I thought that was pretty cool because that's absolutely the case. The second one is from a gentleman by the name of Paulo Coelho, Coelho. I had to look him up. But all I had to do was put in the Paulo, the Paulo, and he was the first one that came up. He is a 67-year-old Brazilian author novelist and has written, I mean, he's quite well known. He's gotten a lot of awards, et cetera, et cetera. So you might want to look him up. I have forgotten the name of his most popular book, but I do not remember from reading the bio that it's been translated into 80 different languages. So I'm thinking it's a hit. And I really liked what he said. I found it very appropriate to my life. If it's still on your mind, it is worth taking the risk. Since this is a new year and you've made some resolutions and you've got some dreams that maybe you've been carrying forward year after year in those resolutions, perhaps that quote from Paulo will help you go across the edge and take the risk this year. If it's still on your mind, it is worth taking the risk.
I like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'll take the risk.
There you go. Well, you're doing it right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to start off with, besides the leadership quote, I'm assuming that all of you had, but that's a faulty thing to do, as we all know. So I had my traditional New Year's Day meal. There are 3 factors always on the plate, 2 of which I understood. The third I really didn't. And Emma did the lookup on it to find out what it meant and why it's always there. What you have in what we call a traditional meal, or what I grew up with as a traditional meal, was ham or pork chops or pork ribs or something like that, but it's from the pig family, all right? The second is some cabbage. I knew what that was for. That's for prosperity. The green cabbage signifies prosperity for the new year. All right? And when I opened the show, I wished you a happy and prosperous new year, not just a happy new year. I want to make a distinction when it comes to that. When I'm talking about prosperity, I am not necessarily talking about chasing the dollar. Prosperity comes in a lot of different ways. You can be very prosperous in the number of friends that you have. You can be very prosperous in the number of folks that you influence, that you lead, that you help. So when you hear the word prosperity, don't confine that to bank accounts and financial net worth. All right? That's a real key to me, and it should be a key to you. And the third thing on the plate is black-eyed peas. And those are there for good luck. All right? Let's go back to the pork dish. I am told by Ms. Surefire that it is pork. Why, Emma?
For progress.
Okay. But then you went on to explain it further, because the pig...
Yeah, the pig moves forward. And they gave an example, like why we wouldn't eat chicken, because the chicken scratches backwards, so like you're regressing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so pork is considered to be a progressive move. All right.
Going forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was told growing up that it was to keep the terrorists out of the dining room. And apparently it always worked, because we never had any sit down for New Year's Day meal with us.
I like that version.
It'll work either way, right? I had I don't want to start on a down note, because I'm not sure I'm kind of over it and moving towards the upside of what was contributed to my life. And it has to do with prosperity. I had to put a very close companion of mine to rest on Monday morning. A dog by the name of LD. LD stood for Lost Dog, and that's what she was in 2002 when she found us. We were constant companions. She went all the way through MBA with me. She went all the way through my PhD with me. I mean, just she went anywhere and everywhere that we could possibly go together. I do still and probably will miss her for quite some time. But the one thing that I have always had a tendency to do in my life is, you know, when I hit my head on the diving board trying to learn how to do something fancy as a youngster, the first thing that the coach made me do was get back up on the diving board. And you're always told if you ride horses and you fall off, the first thing you got to do is get back up on the horse. So I'm in the search for a dog. And I may have found one, but we'll find that out. But as a result of that, I posted it out on the Facebook page. One of my high school classmates was kind enough to take it off of the Facebook and send it around as an email to all of our classmates, which, if you're a listener to the show, you know that I recently had this past summer my 50-year high school reunion, and it was a real high watermark. We all got together, and it was like yesterday. We had a hard time believing that 50 years had gone by. But one of those classmates sent me a poem, and it was, I thought, pretty cool, so I thought I would read it to you very, very quickly. The title of the poem, and it's written by a lady by the name of Janie Oakes, Oakes. She wrote it back in May of 2014. And the title of the poem is Best Good Girl. Our dog plods, panting up the hill ahead. She stops to sniff. Forays chasing rabbits are no more. My own step slows. Instead of brisk, a saunter, amble more than the habit. Her days of dedicated watchfulness from a favorite porch have given way to naps. Defending us from coyotes, UPS, she, now weary, leaves behind most days. Our walks are numbered. Only some remain. We are her humans. She will not suffer more dignity. The cough, the pain. Is our struggle to be humane enough? Dogs know no past or future, only now. She is our teacher, and to her we bow. Thank you, LD. I also got an email from a cousin of mine who, let's just say, he fit right in because he was a little strange. We're not necessarily a family that has everybody that's come out of like a cookie cutter. We're all relatively independent. He sent me this quotation, and I thought it quite appropriate. It's a quote from a fellow by the name of H.L. Mencken, Mencken. Mr. Mencken was born in 1880 and died in 1956. He was a journalist, a satirist, critic, and a registered Democrat. Mencken wrote the following editorial while working for the Baltimore Evening Sun, which appeared in the July 26th, 1920 edition. 1920 edition. Critical piece of information. I quote, "As democracy is perfected, the office of the president represents more and more closely the inner soul of the people. On some great and glorious day, the plain folks of the land will reach their heart's desire at last, and the White House will be occupied by a downright fool and complete narcissistic moron." And in it, the message from my cousins finished with, "So it was written, and so it has come to pass." 1920. He reached out there and saw that. Right before I take a little break here, I don't know whether any of you have been watching, man, this college football marathon that seems like it's been going on for a month now. I mean, you absolutely cannot avoid it. And I would submit to you, most of the games have been absolutely fabulous. I can't tell you how many have been decided in overtime, double overtime, field goals that have bounced off of the crossbars. I mean, it's the most exciting thing that's been going on. It's absolutely amazing. It's the way football should be done and should be played. The one that was on right before the show, the run up to the finals between Oregon and Florida State wasn't much of a game, but that's the very first one in all of this thing that's been going on that hasn't gone right down to the absolute last minute and even into overtime. So I applaud all of the young men and the coaches and all of these programs that they've had on TV because it's really been cool. And just so you won't think that I have broken my rule and allowed a television into the studio or into the house, I am watching them on the internet. So they're available out there to watch on the internet. I'm going to take a break here for just a minute and grab a sip of water, and I will be right back.
Rally the youth, come on, let's go. We've been asleep for way too long. The time has come to break the chains that bind our freedom. 9 to 5, you think you've done all that's needed. Judging by your paycheck, do you think you've succeeded? There's more to life than work without meaning.
Welcome back, folks. This is the Doc Owens Show. Happy and prosperous New Year to you if you are just joining us. And it's just a double down happy and prosperous New Year to you if you've been with us. We're glad to have you. As you know, we've been joined on the show tonight by Ms. Ima Surefire. If you've been with us, if you're not, Ima, say hello to the new folks that just chimed in.
Howdy, folks.
There you go. Ms. Surefire is going to be a real added addition. I think it's going to be great. Let's talk a little bit of serious. We left off with the quote from 1920 by a fellow by the name of Mencken, and I'm sorry you missed that if you did because it was real prophetic. One of the things that has kind of passed now because of the holiday, and we took a break for Christmas, so it's been a couple of weeks since I clipped this article out, but it has to do with Sony backing down, and then in the final analysis, they turned around and went ahead and produced or published or allowed people to view the movie called The Interview, and I don't think it was a very good movie, but I think it met with real good attendance. A lot of the people I think attended simply in protest. Another thing that's going on having to do with the internet is that Russia convinced Facebook to ban a page calling for support of Alexei Navalny, a notable critic of Russian President Vladimir Putin inside of Russia. So, as you should know, I have been a very open, vocal, and hopefully logical adversary to the government's attempt to turn management of the internet over to an international governing body. In other words, they claim ownership of the internet over to the international body, but that's kind of a stretch. What they're talking about doing is giving an international body the control of the naming convention or the names and who gets names and how they're assigned and et cetera, et cetera. And ultimately it would result in things like Vladimir Putin did to Facebook to make them back off of a particular page. In other words, you would open the United States intellectual property. Make no mistake about it. We created this thing called the Internet. Our armed services created it. It was called ARPANET. And then they turned it over to the education system. And the colleges and universities got all connected with it as it continued to grow. And from that point, it became commercialized, and entrepreneurs took over, and people like Zuckerberg from Facebook could become multi-gabillionaires with this thing called the Internet. And I don't resent anybody being that successful. I do resent when they then come back and try to squash anybody else's ability to follow in their footsteps. That is unethical. That is low integrity. That, in street jargon, is crap. Just because you got there doesn't mean you shouldn't open the doors and let others get there. All right? So we need to be, my point about this thing on Sony and Facebook, et cetera, is we need to be very vigilant and communicate, whether it's at the top of the news bulletins or not, constantly communicate with your representatives and in any open forum that you have about the Internet and who created it, who owns it, and we owe it, I think, that the United States owes it to the world to continue to manage it. Because no matter how we have faltered over the last 50 years, we are still a beacon of liberty and freedom and honesty, and nothing personifies that more than the Internet and access to ideas and things around the world. So that's kind of my box office on the Sony thing. I mean, I thought they were wimping out from the get-go. But what do I know? But there's another fellow that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's back in the news. And here's why I say that. His name is Trevor Loudon. Mr. Loudon is from New Zealand. And I had the opportunity when I was just starting my radio career in 2013 of interviewing Trevor when he came through town. What a delightful guy. And he's from New Zealand, but he is more American and more in our corner. His whole thing is, if America falls prey to communism and Marxism and socialism and all of the things that are against our way of life, if we allow that to take over, then the world is gone. We are the last hope of survival of these freedoms that we consider to be God-given. And he's absolutely correct, because anybody else where these freedoms, we help protect anybody else who has these freedoms. We're the big brother in the fight. And if the big brother pulls out, you got a problem. And we don't want that problem. Well, Trevor's back in the news because he's talking about the fact that few people, and sometimes, you know, when you're standing back from something and you are not necessarily in the fray, as he is not in New Zealand, you get a better picture, a clearer picture of what's really going on. Trevor is being very vocal about Barack Obama's, and others, I might add, drive for amnesty. All right? He states it very clearly. Obama is simply after the votes. He believes that by legalizing 11 to 20 million illegals and eventually giving them the vote, he will turn America into a permanent Democratic Party, one-party state. He's absolutely correct with that statement. He says that Mr. Obama knows there will be no 20-year window for the Republicans to build their share of the Latino vote. He understands that if the Democrats win the next one or two presidential elections, the left will use the power of the state to divide and smash their Republican conservatives and evangelical Christian opposition forever. Think IRS, NSA, EPA, all of the three-letter acronyms that are already coming down on our freedoms. Think of that on steroids. So I would caution everyone to not succumb to the bleeding heart, oh, woe is these people, pitch that's being put on you about amnesty. Because that's all it is. It's a pitch. It's nowhere near the truth. With me?
I hear you, and I agree all the way, Doc.
She's nodding her head, so I thought I'd see what I mean. That's the way she was at the table, too. One of the things that they've learned, and I have been reporting on for, I don't know how long. I'd have to go back and look, but certainly over 6 months. There are more, and the reason we know these things in Texas is because we are very close to the information. We don't have to rely on national sources to give us data. There are more non-Mexicans were apprehended by the Border Patrol in 2014 than Mexicans. So when you look at the records of the Border Patrol, they have two categories, Mexican and OTM. OTM means other than Mexican. I don't know about where you come from, but that's a pretty big category. I mean, they break you down into, I don't know how many, 10 or 12 categories when you're applying for a job nowadays. You know, it's ridiculous. And yet, the borders to the United States of America are simply Mexican or other than Mexican.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you got them there. You're asking them questions. Why not go ahead and say, oh, really? Where are you from? How hard is that?
I'm telling you, even on a job application, like you said, they're wanting to know everything about you.
Yeah.
But yet these people, just two categories.
Yeah. It's the information that they reported in this thing was from Pew Research, and it's drawing on more than 60 years of Border Patrol data. It's the first time that this has occurred. So that's why the anomaly. And actually, in the last, since 2000, the number of Mexicans coming into this country illegally has dropped precipitously. Okay. Has dropped in a big way. I like to use precipitously because it was very difficult for me to learn how to pronounce. And once I learned how to pronounce it, I look for every opportunity to use it. So you can rest assured that that was the correct pronunciation of precipitous. And when used as an adverb, you add the ly. Well, there is one thing that came out of the national news that was of great relief to me. And I knew that you would want to know this. So I hope you're sitting down. If you're driving, you may want to pull over to the side of the road. The CIA has admitted all those UFO sightings in the 1950s, it was them. Yep. As far as the best of 2014 list goes, the CIA has a pretty irresistible one. on December the 22nd, they started tweeting to the 10 most popular articles of the year. And they shared on Twitter that the agency arrived at number 1 yesterday, tweeting, quote, reports of unusual activity in the skies in the 50s, it was us, end quote. And the accompanying link directs the readers to the CIA and U-2 spy program. And literally that the upshot of the report is that the CIA was the culprit behind more than half of the UFO sightings logged in the 50s and 60s. The deal was they were testing U-2 spy planes at a height of 60,000 feet, which was far higher than any other known aircraft could fly. So even pilots thought they were UFOs because, as far as we knew, no airplanes could go that high. So I, for one, and that's been bugging me since the 50s and 60s. So now I can stop looking out the front door for the little green guys that were dropped off. And, you know, I grew up in a family that always tried to, most everybody in the family anyway, tried to view the glass as half full as opposed to half empty. So I found this article that has a glass half full view of the year 2014. All right? It talks about Barack Obama's greatest accomplishments in 2014. When I saw the headline to the article, I thought, well, this is going to be a really short list. And I was surprised at the number of things that he has done that are actually quite beneficial to all of us. I'd like to go through most of those with you. I think that you will agree with this author. And I'll tell you who the author is in just a moment, because I never take credit for somebody else's work. All right. The question posed is, what is the positive side of Obama presidency? For fellow constitutional and Second Amendment patriots, Obama is the greatest gun salesman in history. Over 70 million guns have been purchased since Obama took office. It says this man opens his mouth, reads from the teleprompter, and instantly Americans are inspired to buy all-time record quantities of guns and ammo. And for fellow fiscal conservatives and capitalists, Obama is the greatest gold salesman ever. Conservatives love gold. And after all, it is the antidote to a debt crisis and lack of confidence in a reckless or incompetent government. Obama is also the greatest thing to ever happen to print shop owners. I thought, what? Let me explain. Print shop owners can't keep up with the demand for going out of business signs and home for sale by bank signs. And what about all the protest signs funded by communist groups announcing, what do we want? Dead cops. I'll talk more about that in a minute. And have you thought about the teachers that specialize in English as a second language? So if you can speak English and Spanish, you can basically set your price. You are in very high demand. The future is also bright if your goal is to sit in a windowless office handing out checks for welfare, food stamps, disability, and or unemployment while complaining you're overworked and underpaid. Almost 20% of Americans are on food stamps alone. So all you got to do is put in your 20 years. You can retire at the age of 45 and collect an obscene pension for the next 40 to 50 years for not working. It also talks about the fact that basements are the new hip living space for young adults. There is a boom in the housing industry building basements and selling houses with basements. 31% of all Americans between the ages of 18 and 34, the Doc Owen Show target audience, 31% live with their parents. I had no idea the number was that high. Did you?
No,
31%.
that's a shame.
Yes, that is a shame. And pharmaceutical companies are celebrating. A record 30 million Americans are dependent on antidepressants. Last but not least, he says the rest of us, it's 2 long years until we can celebrate Obama-free America. This was written by a fellow by the name of Wayne Allen Root. If you're not familiar with Root for America, you need to be. Mr. Root was a libertarian candidate for presidency. He's quite a character. I'm going to take one final break here and get a sip of water so I can maybe quit coughing, and I will be right back. Howdy, folks. Welcome back. You are listening to the Doc Owens Show. We are glad to have you. Happy and prosperous New Year to you. It's going to be a good one. I don't care what anybody tells you. Hang in here. We will make it happen. The last section of the show, one of the things that, the title of the show is New Year, New Show. We're going to spend the last few minutes of each and every show on local issues. Local to San Antonio, local to Texas, local to the region. In other words, we'll take our eye off of Washington, our eye off of global aspects of some things that are going on, and kind of bring it close to home so we make sure that we cover all of those bases. However, before I get into that, there's one more topic I'd like to cover. I saw a very brief article that after the shooting of 2 of New York's finest, the message has been made clear. All right? There is a war on police officers. I don't know about my listeners. I don't know about millennials. But I can tell you about the millennials' parents and grandparents. This is absolutely obscene. That we are, what's obscene about it is, if you ask me, is we are allowing it to happen. The media, the way it's being presented is as if there's nothing we can do about it. I think that's on us as American citizens. That it's outrageous. These fellows put their life on the line every minute of every day to protect the vast majority of the American citizens who are law-abiding. And for this public outrage to be going on without strong opposition, it to me is unconscionable, unacceptable. I take every opportunity, just like I have done this before all this came up, by the way, just like I do with military folks in uniform. When I see a police officer in uniform, quite often I am at a coffee shop or someplace, hopefully I'm not being pulled over. And if I'm being pulled over, I am certainly a yes, sir, or yes, ma'am individual. That's it, period. Whatever it is you think I did, I'll take my medicine. I am not going to argue with you. And that's the whole point. But I always take the opportunity, if I see them in a coffee shop or wherever, to A, treat them like normal folks, and B, thank them for their service. Please start doing that. The reason I bring it up is on Wednesday, that would be yesterday, protesters stormed the police headquarters of the St. Louis Police Department and occupied the building. Reports are still emerging, but protesters reportedly issued police an eviction notice that included a list of supposed grievances that included the police's alleged willingness to brutally serve as a militarized occupying force that locks up too many minority citizens. Did you notice the number of times that it says alleged or supposed grievances? These are... I think it takes a great amount of restraint on the part of the police not to just lock up the protesters. You know? If you've got something to say, take it before a judge. It's not that they're squashing public opinion, it's that take it before a judge.
Right.
Sorry, I hit my head on the microphone. And to that, the other side of the coin, we try to do this. You know I am not in favor of militarized police. The Fourth Amendment to the Constitution of the United States reads, "The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized." And yet, the Supreme Court has recently ruled 8-1 that the citizens have no protection against Fourth Amendment violations by police ignorant of the law. So, what do? You do what I said. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, sir. Do not argue the point of law with the police officer who is telling you what to do. Obey the police officer. Then you can go to court and politely explain to the police officer what a dumbass he is, if that's the case. And it can be. But you don't go at it one-on-one with a police officer. You lose. That's I was I was going to go further, but I won't. Okay, so I want to play a little clip for you that comes from I think it's Arlington, Texas, from the Tea Party. In the state of Texas, we are having our own little miniature fight over the Speaker of the House, similar to what's going on a national basis with Mr. Boehner. The Speaker of the House in Texas has been referred to as the Harry Reid of Texas. He's a Republican from San Antonio, as a matter of fact. I've met one of his, I don't know whether he's the chief of staff or just a staff member, but I have met and talked with him. So I'm not going to express anything now that I wouldn't tell him to his face. And that is, I think he does not uphold the conservative roots that he tries to run for office on. He is a rhino, not a Republican. And he threatens Republicans who do not vote for him as Speaker of the House. In other words, if you're like me, if you're more conservative than he is, you are a threat to him. And that's what's going on in Texas. There is a very viable alternative. The Speaker of the House in Texas is Joe Straus. He's from San Antonio. Not that you'd know it, he never appears publicly. I can understand why. And his opponent is a very viable candidate by the name of Scott Turner. So if you're in Texas and you're listening to this broadcast or listening to the podcast and don't know anything about Scott Turner, please look it up, get involved, and tell your representative how you feel about it. Right now, the fellow from the Arlington Tea Party is calling out a newly elected official. Remember me telling you, we got to get on them immediately, hard, and fast if they don't do what they said they were going to do. So let me tell you let me let you listen to what I found today.
Your Texas State Representative, Giovanni Capriglione, is a turncoat. He represents Keller, Southlake, Colleyville, and Grapevine. Giovanni Capriglione campaigned on the issues of pro-life, smaller government, and lower taxes. However, immediately after his election, he announced that he's going to vote for Joe Straus to become the Texas Speaker of the House on his very first vote this session down in Austin. So, who is Joe Straus, and why does this matter to you? Well, Joe Straus is the Harry Reid of Texas, according to Forbes magazine. He's in favor of a state income tax, and he has a 100% NARAL rating. That's the country's largest pro-abortion lobby. Also, Joe Straus has threatened Republicans with retribution if they don't vote for him to be Speaker of the House. However, we need bold and courageous representation that will stand up to the Austin establishment, not men who are timid and afraid like Giovanni Capriglione. I'm going to challenge you to do something. Take out your phone right now and call the number on your screen. This is the number to the office for House District 98. Tell Giovanni Capriglione to vote no to Joe Straus. Vote no to Joe. Thank you. I'm Joshua Finkenbinder, the president of Arlington Tea Party.
That's what we need to do. What Joshua just did in a very public manner by creating a professional YouTube video, that's exactly what we need to do as activists. This, I can't pronounce his name, Bigliotti, without seeing it in front of me. Can you pronounce it, Nyla?
I think it says Capriglione.
Close enough. I want mine with red sauce.
And
My
hold the
Capri-
cheese?
Yeah, no, I like the cheese.
Oh,
I'm fine
okay.
with the cheese.
We'll
I just
take-
can't do the butter stuff.
Oh, okay. That,
Right.
yeah.
All right, so Mr. Capriglione ran on a very conservative Tea Party type platform. That's why the head of the Tea Party in his district is taking exception to the way he's going to vote when he gets there. Folks, it's a thing called integrity. Do what you say you're going to do. If you tell somebody you're going to do something, you got to do it, no matter how unpopular it may seem at the time. Because the voters sent you there to be unpopular. Get it? We don't send folks that are constitutional Christian conservatives, do not elect officials to go up there and run for cheerleader. They're sent there to do a job, and that includes Austin, Texas. So I'm glad he did that. I was impressed. There's something, speaking of that the San Antonio Tea Party is backing. There's information about it out on the Doc Owen Show Facebook. I think there is another meeting coming up pretty quickly. They're trying to gather a group together. It may be this coming Friday or Thursday, January the 8th, having to do with a thing called the Convention of States. You need to bear down and learn what that is. It is a very critical opportunity to take states' rights back from the federal government. It is a huge nationwide movement. And needless to say, if Texas will sign on to this convention of states, we have a lot of influence on the rest of the states. We are big brother in the fight. So find out about that and get involved if you can. And the last thing I want to say is reserve Saturday, May the 2nd. That's all I'm going to tell you right now. Just go to your calendar right now. This is the last thing that's going to be on the show other than our little ditty and me saying goodnight. So right now, go get a piece of paper and a pencil and write down 5/2. Not that hard. Then go find a calendar and just put an X on it. You're booked. I'll tell you why later.
So save the date.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is.
May 2nd.
May the 2nd.
That's right.
Okay, 5/2/15.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's bad. That adds to 13. I didn't know that. Okay. Anyway.
Sometimes it could be a lucky number.
I don't know how. All right. So, as you listen to the final ditty, remember, replace the word rock with the word dock and go mark off 5/2. And I will be right back. Is that all right?
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. Put your glad rags on. Join me home. We'll have some fun when the clock strikes 1. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, rock, rock till broad daylight. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight.
Folks, you've been listening to the Doc Owen Show. We sincerely appreciate it. One more time, a happy and prosperous New Year to you all. Thank you very much for being with us. Take care. God bless. Good night.
Good night, y'all.